Okay. All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from LastCar.info. Welcome to the LastCar post-race show. Coming at you just from the conclusion of the 400 miler today in Kansas, as Kyle Larson unofficially has now scored his third consecutive win, his ninth of the season, and is now making a very bold claim, if he hadn't already, for a championship bid at Phoenix in just a couple weeks from now. Lots to definitely cover here. A lot of misfortune suffered by a lot of his other championship contenders has now spread out the point standings out quite a bit. Top of which being, of course, Ryan Blaney's issue with Austin Dillon, which has, of course, churned up the debate about how playoff drivers and non-playoff drivers are supposed to be competing against each other at the same time. But a lot to discuss from that end. And, of course, the last place battle that was ultimately decided by a minimum speed ruling by NASCAR at the same time here. Also, one thing I want to definitely mention, as you can see, I'm wearing the Fast hoodie here. Very comfortable, by the way. If you haven't had a chance to check out that already, the QR code on the number 96 car is where you can get one of these here. I can definitely attest to how comfortable they are. Definitely want to bring that up because a fantastic run for Kligerman in the field here. I was really pleased with how much NBC was promoting his run and showing both his battle with Chase Briscoe in order to be able to stay up in the stay on the lead lap or in the position for the lucky dog there for the restart. So it was good to see that. At the same time, good to see that they had the onboard camera and the in-race reporter segment there for him, and ultimately getting a good finish out of it. I think that I'm sure the company there has probably got to be pretty happy with the amount of exposure they were able to get on this broadcast today, and a good performance for him as well. His first start, in fact, in a couple of years, 2019 at Texas, was the last time that Kligerman had taken the green in a cup race. But we've seen some good performances out of him this year, including the fifth place run at Watkins Glen, where they did the previous promotion here. And so then even more attention brought here. So hopefully something else will be able to come together for him next year and in the races ahead. I'm not sure what the Gaunt brothers' plans are with the next gen car. I'm sure that's going to be developed here in the next little bit, but certainly a good statement run out of him and the number 96 team today. But of course, the star of the show here is Kyle Larson with this victory. An interesting battle there at the end between Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott. Looked like Chase was actually going to get his number there a couple of times, closing within about a half a second at a couple of points. But as we usually see at these 1.5 to 2 mile tracks, every once in a while, you get a battle between a couple of people running the high line, and it's very easy to ride over that barrier and hit the outside wall. Unlike the issues that we saw with Kyle Busch and Truex and Ryan Blaney, although Blaney's was a little bit of a different set of circumstances there. Did not have a tire go down for Chase Elliott, so he stays in a very good points position going into Martinsville, and we're going to see how everything shakes out from there. Kevin Harvick in the third spot, Kurt Busch in fourth, Denny Hamlin in the fifth position there. Hamlin expected to be one of the favorites coming into this race to punch his ticket right after Kyle Larson did his, but that did not play out that way. Still with Hamlin having a good finish, it's good to see. William Byron in the sixth spot had probably the best car out there. Even in Larson's post-race interview, seemed to indicate that the 24 had an even better piece under him there. Unfortunately, dropped back in the closing stages there. Truex in the seventh spot, coming back from his flat right rear tire earlier in the race. Christopher Bell in the eighth spot. Joey Logano and Austin Dillon in the 10th spot. Dillon involved in the controversial incident there with Ryan Blaney, and that kind of leads us into that discussion there. There was a lot of discussion already during the race here and talking about the Parker Kligerman thing, about how much attention to pay to drivers outside the playoffs when you already have all these playoff formats. The issue I have with that is that the playoff system is designed to have the broadcasters focus on a smaller and smaller number of drivers. And if you're already kind of having that narrowing scope, what's the harm to occasionally show somebody like Kligerman having a good run, or even like the Stroker Ace paint jobs that were further back there with Corey LaJoie and Justin Haley. There's also some interesting stories going on throughout the field and some interesting racing there. And I'm glad, although we had the one example there today with Briscoe and Kligerman, it's still just so rare these days in NBC, even rarer in Fox's broadcast these days to look at. But another thing to kind of compare at the same time. I don't think, it needs to be entirely about drivers that are further back. I mean, of course, the battle for the lead is what maintains the focus for everybody watching any of these races. Let's not kid ourselves here. As much as I know that the battle for last place can be just as exciting, today was a little bit different in that regard. Again, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but just paying a little bit of lip service there to at least other parts of the field, especially if you have long green flag runs and the field's strung out. It seems like it's a more logical approach to do, but again, I feel like I hammer that every week, and every week we get another example of a reason that perhaps could change someday down the line. Was it Fall, Texas? I think it was Fall, Texas there. Yeah, he raced at Sears Point. Yeah, so further back in that one there too. But yeah, definitely, not exactly the most competitive race, from one to the other. I mean, Kansas is interesting, and I think in talking about this last week, it seemed like we were going to have a situation where, which of these two races are we going to see? Are we going to see something like last year, where Kevin Harvick was trying to get around Joey Logano and just couldn't? That just the error was just not on his side, and he couldn't get around him, and the race ended up just finishing in the exact same order that they came off pit road? Or are we going to see some of the more wild races at Kansas? Typically, the ones that we've seen in the spring when it's a night race tends to be one of the most physical races on the schedule. We've also seen a good amount of controversy in this race as well. Again, Matt Kenseth's situation with too many crewmen over the wall, costing him a spot in the championship that one year. Definitely tended towards the latter in this one. Kyle Larson seemed to have this race pretty well in hand at the end, although Chase Elliott and William Byron both seem to be the strongest car at different points of the race. Certainly the Hendrick Motorsports group in general, really trying to get the best overall performance that they could get out there. Didn't see as much out of Alex Bowman here compared to his other teammates, but not a terrible run out of him either compared to a lot of the other playoff contenders. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what the situation was with Kyle Busch there. Obviously the tire failures, but I mean, he screamed something over the radio that they played over the broadcast. And between the lower quality of the usually have from these radio broadcasts and, just pigging the range on the microphone there, I had no idea what it was, but you could tell he was very upset in the car. And to have a run like that he had today, you could hardly blame him for that. Kyle Busch showing in the, how much did he get back after that? He wasn't in the top 10. Seemed like he was still a few laps down. There he is, 28th spot there, showing 6 laps down at the finish, right behind Ryan Newman, who had a spin there during the race, and ahead of Eric Jones. Well back in the order. I mean, a lot of these guys, this is kind of more what I was expecting to see at Texas, because, of course, you had the PJ1 where cars are kind of sliding up the track, and hitting the wall, and you don't really have a small incident at Texas when something happens. Of course, you had the big pile up there. Instead of multiple single car incidents that we usually see there. I kind of expected to have something like we saw here today, where he had a lot of flat tires, a lot of pit miscues, and a lot of just plain bad luck. Brad Keselowski himself seemed to be suffering all 3 of those throughout this race, trying to get back into position to be on the lucky dog, and then have the car overheat to force yet another pit stop and drop further back in the lineup there. A lot of heartbreak, and a lot of drivers that just, and again, would any one of these drivers had anything for Kyle Larson if they restarted second and, whenever the last restart was? Probably not. But it's still kind of difficult to say at the same time. But it didn't help. That's for sure. Actually, I was mentioning Bowman. He was actually 11th here in the results here. So yeah, not a terrible run here. But just still a bit further back from his teammates. Bubba Wallace looked like he had a top 10 going there, finishing in the 14th spot, next to last on the lead lap, ahead of Daniel Suarez. 17th place is where Brad Keselowski ended up. The second driver 1 lap down. Michael McDowell was lapped before the finish of the race and would have had the lucky dog if we had a late race caution. And that was another aspect of that too. Tyler Reddick also has been very impressive, just as we saw out of him last week at Texas. Had another great run in today's race. We were talking about losing paint schemes on Twitter earlier this week, and about certain paint jobs or sponsors that just never seem to reach victory lane, such as the Hunt Brothers Pizza paint job for Kevin Harvick, or the Pedigree car for Kyle Busch. The Caterpillar car is another one that's been absent from victory lane for so much. Even when Ryan Newman was winning a couple races in the 31, both of those didn't happen in the Caterpillar paint job that he ran most of the season. Jeff Burton as well, running in that paint job and not reaching victory lane. Scott Wimmer, other competitors along the way, ever since Ward Burton's last win in 2002 at New Hampshire, has changed hands between multiple different teams, manufacturers, drivers, and everything else. And Reddick, the latest chapter in this, trying to reach it himself, not quite able to, and now has 2 more shots this year to try to pull off a victory. Although with the intensifying championship battle, that, of course, is going to be a very steep challenge for him and the other competitors out there. We mentioned Parker Kligerman. He actually finished 1 spot behind Chase Briscoe, who he battled there for the Lucky Dog situation there earlier. Matt DiBenedetto briefly in the lead, end up 23rd at the finish. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in 24th. And this brings us more towards the back end of the field there. One thing I thought was really cool about this particular race, really going into it rather, is a number of drivers coming back after extended leaves from the sport. I mentioned Kligerman at length, of course, at the beginning of this show, but also Chad Fincham and Ryan Ellis getting back into the Cup Series. We'd seen both those drivers in the Xfinity Series here and there, but good to see them get back up there. Chad Fincham, it's actually not been that long ago since Nashville, when Motorsports Business Management entered 2 cars in there not long after the All-Star race in Texas. But seeing Ryan Ellis get back in the Cup Series for many years, I think it was 2016 when he was with BK Racing. Great to see him back out there. It didn't get shown that much, but he had a nice gold painted paint job that was kind of similar to Bobby Allison's car, although promoting a different sponsor. Actually, I think it was a different brewery, actually, on the 15 there. Finishing the last car to finish under power, 13 laps down in the 36th spot, but still finishing under power, so good for Ellis. Hopefully get some other starts coming up here. Interesting story behind that, according to, I think it was on Joseph Strigley wrote a piece on this, tied into the incident back at Mid-Ohio where Ellis was spun out at the very end of the Xfinity race while racing Cody Ware. A complete racing incident, wasn't intentional, but that was not forgotten by the Rick Ware racing effort. And to put Ellis in the 15 car this week, nice turnaround there. And good to see him get some exposure back out there. I mean, this is definitely a sport where if you stay involved as best you can, even if you're just running back in the pack, it's still a way to kind of keep your name out there. And then when other opportunities arise, you at least have something that you can point at there. And in this case, certainly in a race like this with a lot of attrition for championship contenders, managed to finish under power and even ahead of one of them in Ryan Blaney. A decent run there for him as well. Fincham, however, did not get the advantage of that. He was black flagged twice by NASCAR for not maintaining minimum speed. Radio transmissions from the 66 indicated that he had a serious tight condition that especially manifested after the first 2 laps of running the race on cold tires. Once tires came up to temperature, the car was just pushing really bad in the corners. It was shown by the intervals that he had lost so much ground, even to the other drivers at the back of the pack that he was racing, and lost laps very quickly. They attempted some repairs. They apparently still couldn't make any headway on that, and ended up getting pulled behind the wall there. So an unfortunate deal for the 66 team. What this does result in, however, since that was only Fincham's second last place finish and his first of 2021, the Cup Series Last Car Championship is going to remain very tight going into these last 2 races. As I mentioned there just yesterday, Eric Almirola, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and Kurt Busch are the only drivers that have 3 last place finishes this year. And each one of them have fewer bottom 5s and bottom 10s than several drivers behind them, which means that if any of those drivers that are trailing finish last at Martinsville or Phoenix, even if those 3 drivers don't finish last again, they could very easily take the championship at the last second, which is something I'm being very mindful of because, of course, covering the race at Phoenix again this next year, I am planning on bringing back the last car certificates that we did our last coverage back in 2019. And who are they going to be handed to? Might have to go for a different design where I actually have to write the name in on pit road. Either that or just print out a whole ton of them there with different names on them. Still kind of figuring that out along the way. But those answers will be cleared up a lot more at Martinsville. Martinsville, of course, at the Truck Series is going to be returning next week. We're going to see potentially those championships get settled. In the Truck Series, Jack Wood can lock up a championship if he finishes last there. And David Starr could also lock up the Xfinity Championship if he finishes last in that race. However, again, things are still very, very much up in the air if any other drivers can compete in that sense. But for both of those, that's because you have drivers that actually have a 1 finish lead But that's the biggest lead we've seen there. Probably, I don't know why exactly, but we've had probably the most competitive NASCAR championships that we've had in quite some time. Actually, just yesterday, I was using some spreadsheets here to kind of make sure I'm like auditing the statistics and making sure that they're as accurate as they can. I did catch up one error that Cole Custer had one fewer, I believe, top 10, bottom 10 finish than he had. And so I made an adjustment on that. But luckily, everything else that's posted in this week's articles will be current. I also want to especially thank the viewer that drew my attention to Kyle Larson's bottom 5 at Talladega not being counted in the statistics. That has also since been corrected there on the most recent article from last week in Texas. And those statistics will also be current in tonight's article on Chad Fincham, again, pending post-race inspection as to who's going to be ranked where on that. So we'll have some more information for you on that. But Fincham, your last place finisher, listed out with handling issues. That same reason it eliminated Timmy Hill from this same race a couple of years ago. Justin Haley with the engine failure on the Aubrey James Stroker Ace car. Didn't get a lot of screen time there, but really liked kind of the throwback look to both those cars. Inspire Motorsports having a bit of fun with that. Stroker Ace coming out ahead there in the 25th spot there with Corey LaJoie in this case. Anthony Alfredo with another hit to the outside wall. Luckily not as serious as his wreck back at Texas last week. Ryan Blaney after the aforementioned issue with Austin Dillon, and Ryan Ellis rounding out the bottom 5 after today's race. Other competitors we don't really see too much out of, Josh Bilicki and David Starr. Starr appeared to be running the same car from last week at Texas. I don't have confirmation of this, but it did look like exactly the same paint scheme. They just changed the car number on it, and him running a Ford alongside Fincham in a Toyota. So Motorsports Business Management, once again, kind of running different manufacturers, similar to what we see out of Rick Ware Racing from time to time. Josh Bilicki further back in the order there in 33rd spot, Joey Gase 32nd, and Cody Ware in 31st. 51 team still trying to hang on to their charter with whatever runs they can get, but still finishing down in the order, unfortunately. BJ McLeod also with some issues at the beginning with some fender rubs, dropped him to last place for many laps. He was ultimately able to climb back up and finish in the 30th spot, just a couple spots behind Kyle Busch, as a matter of fact. So a good recovery for BJ McLeod, who is not really in NASCAR contention this year. It's actually much more the larger teams between the 1, the 47, and the 10 that are still going to be ones to look at Martinsville and Phoenix coming up here in a bit if they are not subsumed by these other drivers that are right behind them. All righty. So yeah, no, very interested in some of those paint schemes that they ran there. I'm seeing also the question there, RD Fox. Yeah, thank you for bringing up the 84 Wrangler car at COTA. I guess it's the other big part to watch. Like I didn't watch anything from the Formula One weekend here so much, but I'm really pleased that there was a nice big response to the fans out there. As many people checking out the activity there this weekend, I'm sure. And Kenny Wallace was very quick to point this out on Twitter, that everybody's trying to wonder what it's going to take for NASCAR to kind of attract that same attention. There were a lot of empty seats at Kansas, and that was rough to see. I don't know how much of it was the weather. We, of course, did have some rain at the beginning here, and it looks a bit blustery out there with the wind. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, you just had a tremendous turnout in Texas from all the pictures that I'm seeing. And yes, the Daniel Ricciardo thing with the Dale Earnhardt car, I thought that was fantastic. You could tell just from the video where he was holding the model of the 3 car, how much that meant to him there. And pretty cool to see him do the burnout there in turn 1 at the top of the hill there. So a lot of respect between one sport and the other. I've made no bones about the fact that I'm not really the biggest Formula One fan out there. I don't really like the politics and the stuffiness and the expensive nature of it, but I understand its purpose for being out there as the top of the top of the top in motorsports and just putting the most money and the most craziness into it. I think I would be much more of a fan of it if they were a little bit more uninhibited in allowing teams to innovate and really kind of step it up there. But again, it's not been my enjoyment of it. And I do think NASCAR has been wrong to kind of take the wrong inspiration from the sport there in trying to get some more people in the stands. But at the same time, you can't really argue with the stories that they've had coming out of the series this year. A good championship battle, and other competitors trying to get in there, and a lot of personalities showing up at the track too. So that's certainly good to see from anything. I think when motorsports in general is doing well, it's definitely a positive sign for those of us who are race fans in one discipline or another. I think it's also good that the automated race cars that were running in Indianapolis this week were running slow laps, running into walls, because that human element, I still maintain, is one of the most critical elements in racing that has to be there. I don't think you're going to have a much harder time having people root for a CPU in one car versus another when you have that human driver behind the wheel that's making these decisions to do this or that, to adjust their driving style this way or that way. I don't think there's any replacement for the real thing. Is this just the latest example, much like the sim racing thing? And this doesn't feel strange to be threatened by one thing over the other? Maybe. I think the pandemic has certainly shown us that there are certain limitations to sim racing, which treat it as an entirely different universe from actual real life racing and actually, jumping behind the wheel and everything. But still having them coexist, and maybe that'll be the future of what happens at that same point. But hard to tell. But that's outside my expertise as well in open wheel racing there at the same time. But the history of Formula One, I'm fascinated by it. I still said that, look, if I had watched Formula One races instead of the Days of Thunder at a formative age, you'd probably see me wearing an Ayrton Senna cap instead of this one here today. So, again, it could be very easily. I thought that documentary was fantastic. I still haven't seen the Michael Schumacher one yet, but I need to get around to that. I'll probably end up checking that out over the off season. It's been a busy couple of weeks here, to say the very least. I'll mention here at the same time that I've made a lot of really good progress on the script to the next episode of Rise of the Field Fillers, the episode on Hermie Sadler and Score Motorsports. One thing that's very similar to Carl Long, and the two of them actually raced against each other at one point. A tremendous amount of information actually exists out there on Hermie Sadler and his career. And it's actually kind of been a challenge to kind of condense it down into something that's going to be a really good narrative from there. So I'm very excited about that project. I don't know if that's going to be my next release or if I'll do a short video here between now and then. I kind of like to do that because I anticipate this one's probably going to take a little bit of time in terms of setting up an interview and kind of tying that stuff together. I have a list of some questions I've drafted up to hopefully kind of cover some things that I need to kind of fill gaps on there. But that'll get going there at the same time. Also, those of you who noticed on Until Lap 11, I did upload a second version of that video the other day, and I put that up there. There were people that thought, there were some comments I did receive, not a majority of them. The majority of the response seemed very positive, but the comments that were negative were consistently about the text on the screen being distracting to watching the video. There were a couple of reasons I didn't think that was really going to be that big of a problem, because I thought, people weren't going to be, pleased to really see that footage. And if they wanted to see that footage, there's of course full versions of the race on there and they could watch those. But then also really, I thought the chat was kind of more the focus of it from there. But when I did receive enough of those comments that I felt like, okay, well, I'll put another alternate version up here. And if people want to see that version, it's there. I made it publicly available on Friday. I've since switched it back to unlisted again, because what I don't want it to be confusing for people who haven't seen either video yet. But it is available still on the channel there for people that either don't want to see the chat, or if the text is too big on the screen or whatever else. So that version is still available on that. So a little bit of the thinking process on there. But the major focus is definitely on that project today. In a very similar vein here, of course, during the broadcast today, it was, of course, mentioned this being the anniversary of the Hendrick Motorsports plane crash, the tragic event that happened during the running of the Martinsville race during the inaugural chase for the Cup Series championship in 2004. I didn't have anything really prepared for that one there. I didn't want to get into a rut of doing too many tragic stories in a row or anything like that, especially doing different things like Rise of the Field Fillers. But of course, even with that series, there is some crossover with the events of that race. I haven't really mentioned it so much in the Field Fillers episodes, although I have mentioned the performances of teams that were running in that race. But certainly you just know that the people at Hendrick Motorsports have to be over the moon to see Ricky Hendrick's paint scheme in Victory Lane at the track that he won his only Truck Series race in all those years ago. And, just 1 week removed from that Martinsville event that is now later in the schedule this year. So certainly a tremendous effort there. And I'm sure that's one big reason that Kyle Larson was racing as hard as he was, and was certainly mentioned in this. So again, it's definitely another story that certainly has been covered by many already, and you think about a lot of the mentions of it. But certainly from personal standpoint, I definitely remember watching the end of that broadcast, and then they went to I think it was Jim Hunter there in the infield there, and talking about the announcement about it. I was reading an article just yesterday about it, and apparently the reports of it had come through, I don't know, very early in the race, maybe about midway through. It was a very foggy day during that event. But certainly a moment that's very close to race fans in general, and absolutely the Hendrick Motorsports family there. So given the fact that all of their teams did as well as they did today, running in the top 11, and Larson pulling off the victory there, definitely some other part of the healing process from what was a very dark day in NASCAR's history in recent years. James Sykes, thank you for the super chat here. Just tuned in. Have you given a review of the $1 hoodie yet? Yeah, I guess I have. I guess I have already. At the same time here. Yeah, very comfortable. Definitely recommend it. Fast.co is not paying me for this, so don't worry about that. But yeah, you can definitely, for those of you who haven't checked out the promotion through the 96 team there, very comfortable. I did pull the drawstring out because I always lose those in the wash or anything. But it's very, it's definitely right now in particular, because right now you probably can't hear it on the microphone, but it's storming outside here. We had a pretty good storm blow through here on Friday, and it's been kind of like that ever since then. So getting some much needed rain for the folks in this area, although we're now keeping an eye on mudslides and everything in the area here. So fingers crossed on all of that. But definitely another one to certainly talk about there too. Yeah, and RD Fox. Yeah, so you're exactly right. Yeah, just space them out there for sure. I mean, it really is, and it's the same reason that. Again, I don't mean to jump back and forth here, but I want to make sure I didn't miss your super chat there, James. I apologize for the tonal shift here. So, again, with the subject there of, doing too many videos on, certain subjects or certain tones or anything like that, I do try to kind of make enough variety of content there. And really you see that from NASCAR, man, as well. I think a lot of us, kind of know to kind of keep things consistent. That was another reason after doing the JD McDuffie book, I really wanted to make sure the next book was similar in that sense, but I didn't want to get typecast as just doing stories that, show kind of the worst aspects of racing. I think it's very good to talk more about positive aspects of the sport. And I felt Derek Copes really kind of brings in that story. There is more work still being done on that. As of this moment, looks like the release date is probably not going to be this year. I'm going to have a formal announcement on that soon. What I want to make sure I do is I'm going to be reviewing the latest version of the manuscript here at Phoenix with the Copes there to make sure they have some good notes and stuff we were kind of going over, and I want to kind of catch up on that. And we'll have something going here hopefully pretty soon. Still holding out hope for a publisher there to kind of get stuff tied up there. If not, of course, self-publishing is, of course, an option. But definitely Derek's story has the similarities with the JD one in terms of a driver that was kind of working their way through the ranks, more unheralded in the sport, even though he won the Daytona 500, still is kind of treated as a driver that, either lucked into the win or, just circumstances played out. It's kind of diminished a bit, his career in a lot of discussions. Even, I know this even from discussing it with some publishers. They've had some reluctance on even taking on the project. They're like, well, are people really interested in this guy's story? But having done the interviews with Derek, I think yes, it is very interesting. But most importantly, in a very different aspect from JD's. Of course, Derek is still with us. operating Starcom Racing. We'll see what other, what's going on with the 00 team next year with the next gen car and everything. Of course, they were at the Charlotte Roval test with Kaz Gralla running the cars there. But this is still a driver that has given a lot of himself to the sport. And yes, is mostly known for that Daytona 500 win. But perhaps that one moment isn't as widely understood and is also within the broader context of his career. And that is certainly going to be the focus of the book. So, and then I have another book I'm kind of starting to kind of put together. I've had it on the shelf because I want to get these other videos put together on the YouTube channel that will be different from that as well. So kind of having enough of a variety. I think really just kind of taking a closer look at stories that maybe people feel like they've understood, but you're just kind of scratching the surface. That's kind of going to be more the theme than just doing a bunch of stories on just, the worst aspects of the sport, tragedies that have happened over the years, kind of shying away from that aspect there. And the YouTube channel is going to be kind of the same way with that too. Of course, Rise of the Field Fillers is a very different tone. I like to do more individual driver profiles like I did on J.R. Charbonneau. I do have some other research materials I've collected for some videos like that. So look forward to that as well. Don't have any release dates set yet, but of course we'll have some more information for you guys here in the days and weeks coming up here, especially as we enter the off season. Thank you, Beast of Metal, for the super chat as well. Props to Kligerman on hanging on to the top 20. Absolutely. Great run for him there in the number 96 team. Mentioned him at the top of the show here. Fantastic run for both driver and team at the same time. Wyatt O'Quinn, I saw your question about the round of H. I didn't mean that to be entirely confusing, but yeah, Rick Allen back at Texas leading into it was saying misspoke and called the round of 8 the round of H. And not missing an opportunity to keep that going. That's what I'm going to call it now, the round of H. So the round of H is going to conclude next week. And then I guess it'll be the round of I next week after that for the championship in Phoenix. But that'll be certainly interesting to check out there as well. All righty. So let's see, where else we got from here? Any other questions you guys have from the weekend here? I'll go ahead and field that as well. We do have something for our show and tell segment here, as well as we'll do trivia questions here at the end of the show. But I appreciate everybody tuning in here. We're up to 47 members of the Last Car Pit crew here on board. So thank you guys for tuning in here. The Garage Gang, I guess you could say, or everybody here following on board. Big thanks also to, we got a few new members of the Lastreon, the Patreon here this past week. I drew some more names onto the magnet that's going to be on the side of the car for Phoenix. If you're interested in joining any level of that, for as little as $1, you can get your name on the magnet and be entered in a drawing to win it after the conclusion of our championship coverage planned for Phoenix at the end, or at the beginning rather, of November. We'll have some more details on that. So very excited to get back into that and get back down to that track. It's been a couple years. Unfortunately, we missed the cut there on the 2020 race with all the craziness that was going on last year. But certainly looking to go back to there again. And is it going to be a Kyle Larson day? It's kind of looking that way, but again, racing is, beyond anything else. It is unpredictable. You can set things up in just the way you want them to be. And then the race starts and you get a 12-car pileup, and it could be a completely different set of circumstances. You have drivers that you expect to be up front, and maybe, you have just today is a perfect example of all these tire failures. I mean, who would have expected so many of the Gibbs drivers to have these tire problems here during the race, or Ryan Blaney getting taken out? That's why you still got to run the races. And that's what's one part of it there. So we'll see what happens at Martinsville and Phoenix. Larson's still the only one, I guess, the only one still locked in. I guess Elliott still isn't mathematically in at this point, but we'll find out once we get back through next week's race as well. Crease Boucher. Yep, there we go. Jack Garland. I guess you picked up on that too. Yeah, Boucher is just Boucher just seems easier to say with all the vowels in there. But yeah. Did you already get your hoodie? Yeah, I actually got this one from the August promotion when he got the top 5 at Watkins Glen. So that was different there. But yeah, it kind of looks. It's fast shipping. It is very fast, but it's not quite that fast. But imagine if it were. they're watching. I hope they, yeah, we don't have any sponsors on this show, but maybe that will be something further down the line, but who knows there. I'll tell you what, kind of a funny aside on this. This actually ended up being more eye catching than I thought it was going to be. I actually went to a restaurant once, and this person was saying like, "Oh, yeah, we'll get that order to you like right away. I see you're really impatient." And I was like, "Wait, what? No, I mean, I don't know if we met before." And they was like, "Oh yeah, the sweatshirt." I was like, "No, don't worry about it. And I don't expect it that quick." So that was kind of funny, but I was also hoping there would be another version that would just have last on it. Like that would seem to work really well for mine, but uh, it's just the one design. So there you go. We'll talk about the Xfinity race here as well. We certainly got to cover that one too. I've seen questions about the ARCA race as well. I'm going to defer to our William Saki for that as well. I know he's working on a piece from yesterday, a bit of an exchange at the back of the field in that race between Wayne Peterson and Brad Smith, a couple of underfunded drivers helping each other out at the back of the field. And that's going to be kind of the focus of that discussion here. But looking to the Xfinity Series, and well, I guess some crossover with ARCA. Ty Gibbs, your newly crowned ARCA champion. Although what was it? Nick Sanchez taking the victory there, his first victory. So congratulations to him. Ty Gibbs taking the victory in the Kansas race there over Austin Cindric. Cindric again, one of the very heavily favored teams out there. AJ Allmendinger struggling through most of that race, still getting in the third spot. Again, much like what we're seeing out of the Cup Series. The problem with this all or nothing format, you can have one caution, one pit stop, one blown tire, one absurd little thing that just completely takes you out of a championship and negates an entire year of success with multiple wins and everything. We've seen Cindric and Allmendinger dominate this year, almost, not almost, completely running over each other at Bristol to end the regular season. Both of them trailing Ty Gibbs. It's not even going for the championship with his partial effort. You just know that he's going to be tough next year and whatever he gets into. They've just built a rocket ship there over the 54. It's unfortunate that Kyle Busch had to make as many starts in it as he had to, that there could have been any adjustment or something once Gibbs's wins started taking off there. But I know contracts are as difficult as they are to negotiate as they are to execute. And that was certainly the case in this one here. Ryan Sieg in the 5th spot there. Great to see him get finally a good run. It feels like it's been forever since he's had a top 5 in any of these races. Brett Moffitt worked out some tired strategy to get into 6th. Michael Annett with another top 10. Looking to finish his career strong in these last few races. It'd be good to see him maybe maybe even an outside shot at one of these victories if he can catch some of these playoff guys. But of course, only a couple opportunities left between Martinsville and the Phoenix finale here coming up. Brandon Jones back in the 11th spot there. Daniel Hemrick, what does that guy have to do to get a win? Once again, your pole sitter finishing in the 15th spot after some damage after a backstretch tangle with Noah Gragson, dropping him back into the 15th spot. Gragson back in 35th place after he was ultimately eliminated in an accident with Harrison Burton. Both Burton and Gragson put on probably one of the best battles out there, but unfortunately some contact, accidental though it may have been, from Sam Mayer, triggering a pile up between those two drivers there and knocking them out of the race. Great racing, I thought, in general, the Xfinity race. That felt much closer to what we'd seen out of the Cup races and the spring races at Kansas in recent years. Didn't really see so much of that during today's event, although there was some back and forth, of course, more on the mechanical issues side. Your last place finisher in this one, Joey Gase. It is listed with an electrical issue after completing 2 laps. Now, this is where the important thing is of covering last place battles there. At the surface level, it may seem that, driver just ran 2 laps, slowed down, pulled behind the wall, and that was it. Unfortunately, what actually happened was much more nuanced. They were actually having a struggle at the very beginning, were trailing the field coming to the green flag, had a pit stop on lap 1 to come in and take a look at it, came back out again, was still under power, and then pulled in behind the wall there. Again, and that can happen very quickly. You can have drivers that just have those kind of particular issues. Obviously, the team didn't have any sponsorship on it, as you can see from the pictures. Big thanks to everybody who provided pictures, by the way. Start and Park Car, DNF Racers, as well as Dominic Aragon over at the racing experts there. All provided pictures of the 52. Seemed like that was the most chronicled last place finisher that we've actually had of any race that I haven't even been to. So kudos to the 3 of them for providing pictures and coverage, quite honestly, for this weekend at Kansas. I'll have to make it out there one of these days to meet. I met Dominic before, but Start and Park Cars and DNF racers we haven't met in person yet, but we'll have to correct that one of these days here for sure. Lastbro keeps threatening to drive us out there for that. I'm not sure if we can do it quite by by road out there. Although we did Vegas, and that felt like enough as is. And Phoenix, of course, is a bit further out than that. But that's another one to look at. But Joey Gase, your last place finisher, following up his Cup Series last place run in Texas, finished a bit further up the order during today's race here, finishing last just ahead of Gray Galding. Galding noted a bit of controversy on pit road, the issue with Patrick Emmerling dropping some weights on pit road before the start of the event. That did result in a 4-race suspension for both the crew chief and the car chief of the number 23 car. So a bit of controversy there even before the start of the event. Galding was very insistent on the radio that the 23 be brought down pit road because of this issue. There was no indication that NASCAR attempted to do that. However, NASCAR was very mindful of what did happen there and did hand down that penalty after post-race inspection was completed on the 23 car. So an unfortunate deal for our Motorsports, especially given how good just about any driver has been in that car in recent weeks. We've talked on this show about Ty Dillon have some great runs, Blaine Perkins getting that stage win at Talladega, other drivers trying to get in the mix there too. But unfortunately, not a great day there for the 23 team, even though Emmerling still finished in the 24th spot. Not a terrible finish under the circumstances, but certainly the penalty, certainly a struggle there for that team to be working through at the same time. Bailey Curry has remained another one of these stories that I've really enjoyed following here. Very similar to the situation that's put Galding and other drivers, in the 74 car and Joey Gase in the 52 car. Curry was a driver that had a full-time effort with Mike Harmon racing at the beginning of this year. He and Kyle Weatherman both had some very impressive runs last year. I really enjoyed following both of them last season. Unfortunately, this year, both the 52 and the 74 have really struggled with having sponsorship issues. 52, of course, Jimmy Means' team, the 74 at Harmon's team, and thus have had different drivers in the cars, trying to get different sponsors on them. Both the 74 and the 52 basically didn't have any sponsorship this week. But ever since Curry got in the 15 car, I believe it was at the September Richmond race, he's really been impressive. He's had much fewer mechanical issues and getting more top 20 finishes. His 13th place run at Vegas when we were covering the weekend there was one to look at. And now he's got this sponsorship from Fort Worth Screen Printing that has most often been a backer at Rick Ware's team. They jumped back on board again this week and were rewarded with a great 16th place finish there for the number 15 team. So kudos to Bailey Curry for a great run from him as well. Brandon Brown in the 14th place run. Ever since his Talladega win, of course, he's been able to keep some sponsorship up on the 68 car, getting a decent finish out there on the lead lap. Myatt Snyder was in 10th place. Looked like he was going to get even more there before he got kind of shaken out there towards the end. That was good to see there. Tommy Joe Martin's just outside the top 20, running another preview scheme for next year with the Alpha Prime Racing sponsorship there. The Stealth Fighter looking car had a nice looking paint job there, but still finishing in the 23rd spot there, just ahead of Patrick Emmerling with the penalized machine there as well. Let's see. Loris Hesseman swapped into the 61 car again for Motorsports Business Management, back in the 32nd spot, next to last car to finish under power, just ahead of Alex LeBay, who lost multiple laps, finishing 9 laps down at the finish of that race. Your bottom 5 again. Joey Gase, your last place finisher. Gray Galding, Jade Buford, Mason Massey, and David Starr. David Starr, finishing in the bottom 5, has actually extended his lead in the last car Xfinity standings. Although he still only leads by 1 finish, he now has a better cushion of bottom 5s. That may prove decisive depending on who finishes last in these last 2 races. But again, as mentioned earlier, David Starr still has a shot at locking up the last car Xfinity Series championship by finishing last at Martinsville, which would be his 4th of the season. And nobody else would be able to get 3 at that point, or I guess even at this point, 2 there would secure that. So we'll see how that shakes out. And of course, Jack Wood on the Truck Series, as the Truck Series returns from being off for several weeks, I guess the entire round of H, bringing the 24 truck back and seeing Jack Wood actually compete for a last car Truck Series championship, despite not starting the entire season. That is something that was intended behind the bottom 5 and bottom 10 tiebreakers. It's intended to tend more towards drivers that run the full season rather than part-timers to win the NASCAR championship here, but it is entirely possible. You can have a driver that makes fewer starts and unfortunately starts out with a few last place finishes to begin with. It has happened in other series, I think even in the Cup Series not too long ago, with drivers like Josh Wise and so forth. But we could potentially have that situation in the Truck Series, which up until Talladega, its most recent round, had the closest last car battle that we've seen really ever, I would say. And just looking up the statistics in the past there, potentially having a different last place finisher in every single race, with Joe Cobb and Norm Benning leading the standings practically tied. Just coming down to the fact that Cobb had more starts than Benning would pretty much be the only thing that would decide the tiebreaker in that situation. But so far, both of them still trailing Jack Wood, but both of them can still very easily take the lead back with a single last place finish in either of those races, depending on what happens with Wood. So that'll be another story that we'll be looking at next week, and there'll be a more complete breakdown of that in our Entry List Storylines article that'll be posted this Thursday. As for the coverage on the website there, the Xfinity article from yesterday on Joey Gase with, again, the great pictures that were provided by many fans and media members at the track. Those will be posted. That's already been posted yesterday. The Cup Series article will be coming later tonight. Unofficially going to be Chad Fincham, still pending the results of post-race technical inspection. And we'll certainly find out if that's going to be the case there at the same time. Oh, I'm just hearing the rain out there again. Not sure if you can pick it up there, but yeah, it's been coming down pretty good. Alrighty. Yeah, the last version you'll have to have in my own merch store. I need to do some new merch. I haven't really done that in a while. I've made a couple shirts and stuff like that, but I need to, figure out some different designs or anything. But we'll figure something out. It's luckily there's a lot of things you can definitely come up with here at the same time. Alrighty. iRacer CB, thank you for the super chat here as well. Hey, Barack, a random question, but do you prefer the current playoff system or the old chase format from 2004 to 2013? Winston points were the best, though. Yeah, I mean, good question. I think, the elimination rounds, I'm not as crazy about. I think that some championships are inevitably going to be closer than others. I think the problem that NASCAR put themselves in the situation of is that the 2003 season was going to be typical, that you're going to have several seasons where somebody just runs away and wins just one race and nobody else can catch them. Perhaps that was more a consequence of the point system itself, that a good run would be, rewarded and a bad run wouldn't be punished enough, perhaps. Certainly these days you get last place in one of these races and it could really tighten things up quite a bit. Even before Denny Hamlin won his first race, Kyle Larson had that one last place run at Talladega, and that by itself kept him really close and took a while longer for Larson to be able to be in position to get the regular season championship. But certainly the Winston points are the best. I think I still like the current point system where it's 1 point per position, because I think that's much easier to track, certainly from one moment to the next. I think it's much more difficult to do the 5 points than 4 points than 3 points of the Winston point system. But I think at that same token, I think that it makes it even less excusable to not have a full season championship, because you can know throughout the entire season that one position is 1 point and you got to gain this many points from 1 week to the next. And how compelling would it be if you had a driver in, say, a Tony Stewart position in 2011, that you didn't have the playoffs? You have a driver that doesn't win during the year, maybe has some bad runs at the beginning of the season, but then starts winning, and the person they try to catch the championship starts having bad run after bad run. And most critically, have each race have equal importance. Some race in Atlanta in the second or third race of the year maybe doesn't have the most competitive race, but it could still prove to be completely critical to the championship all the way in November because of how the ultimate two championship contenders competed in it. Kamikaze Games did a good video on Carl Edwards coming short in the championship in 2011, and cited the race in May at Darlington when Furniture Row won with Regan Smith, and of course that leading to Furniture Row becoming more of a powerhouse in 2017, and why that would create a situation that Edwards wouldn't be able to win the championship at the end of the year. I think he made a very good case for it. And yes, it was in a season that you did have the regrouping, and in points and everything. But I do think that I think that NASCAR had a decent idea in 2011 to restructure the points the way they are. I still think they should still go back to having if they have to have the stages, don't have stage cautions, and if they can get rid of the stages, go back to having points for leading a lap or leading the most laps, because that creates an incentive to actually be up front at any one point in the race, or to get more points even if you have a mechanical problem out there, even with the crash clock. I think that's kind of more my perspective on that. But if I had to pick one, I'd probably favor the early versions of the chase where you have a reset in the points and then you still have 10 races where somebody can kind of stretch it out. The problem is that 10 races is just a microcosm of what the whole season should be. And whoever gets the most points wins. Just any other series does that. IndyCar has complicated it with their double point system. Drag racing has their own whatever, however that works with the countdown. Is that still a thing? I don't even follow drag racing that much, but I remember them talking about that. I think NASCAR should just go back to just making things simpler. I think they need to, again, I've talked about, using the Thanos glove on a lot of the things in NASCAR, because I think if you got rid of half of the gimmicks or half of like just the extraneous stuff in the sport, the other half that would remain would probably be just fine. It would probably be just good enough to put on a good show. Split everything in half except the size of the field. Get the fields back up to 43 cars, and allow different teams to be able to compete in there. It's ridiculous that JR Motorsports can't get into the Cup Series because they can't get a charter. It's ridiculous that 2311 Racing now has to kind of adjust their strategy a bit next year because they're going to have a hard time finding a charter. The charter shouldn't matter. They should be able, if they want to put the money into it and they hire a driver and they get sponsors, they should be able to just go in there and compete for the same share of the purse as anybody else. But again, NASCAR feels a need to either create, or in the case of the charter system, allow these complications to be put in there. And unfortunately, the result is, it just kind of confuses everything. It makes it harder to follow. And I do believe there's a direct correlation between that confusion and the inability to attract a lot more fans, especially outsiders, into the sport. I remember the first time I explained the chase to one of my teammates on the crew team in 2004, and he's a basketball fan, and he couldn't make any sense of it. He was like, yeah, it's like, look, I can understand the Final Four and these brackets and stuff, but I can't understand this. So, that it was a very different thing. So, that's kind of the way that worked out. All righty. Thank you, Beast of Metal, there as well for your super chat. A belated congratulations to NASCAR Man and yourself on the videos on his that you've narrated, hitting a combined 4 million views. I was not aware of that. Thank you for the heads up on that for sure. Again, the big thing I always want to make sure that everybody's very mindful that NASCAR Man's videos, those are ones that's not me. That's a completely different person. I'm just the one very fortunate to be narrating the scripts in his videos. Now, I'm not saying you're saying this, Beast of Metal, because I know you're being very clear on this. But yeah, I want to make sure I'm being clear on this too. I do my videos on this channel here. He does videos on his. He's had some great scripts and great production value. You can definitely see differences in the style that I do in my videos and his. And I felt that really back on October 16th, you really saw a good comparison between kind of his approach and mine, or his experience or his expertise in mine there at the same time there. But yeah, I'm over the moon for NASCAR Man being as successful on his channel there and really getting some more attention to some quality auto racing content out there. There's a lot of competition out there these days, a lot of people that get a lot of hits. I've seen Smile Media's videos here lately, producing some great videos. He had one on Bud Moore Engineering's shop here this past week that I thought he did a good job with. Landon Huffman doing the videos from inside his father's shop there with the Goodies Dash Series cars and everything. It's a great time to really be able to put a lot of this content out there. And it's really an honor to be in the conversation when people talk about putting this content out there, because there's a lot of good stuff that's out there. And I think that augurs well for the future of the sport, that people are that interested in the past. As they say on the Scene Vault podcast, of course, the day NASCAR forgets about its past, the day it doesn't have any future. And Steve Wade was certainly correct in saying that on the show there as well. So there's definitely more coming up here at the same time. There we go. Hey there, Alex. Thank you for jumping into the chat here as well. Yeah, it's not NASCAR, it's the RTA. That's what I was pointing out. Yeah, saying in this case it was something they allowed to happen. I mean, NASCAR didn't create the charter system, but they allowed the RTA to take root, and they allowed the RTA to start calling the shots and come up with things that were going to have a direct effect on NASCAR. You're absolutely right, though. Yes, it wasn't a NASCAR putting that together, but it is something that NASCAR has allowed, which I still think is interesting because I think if a different France were, in charge of it, or if it happened at a different time period, it probably wouldn't have been allowed to take root at the same time there. So that's another one to kind of look at. Oh, NASCAR Man posted it on YouTube. Okay, I didn't read that yet. So yeah, right on. So no, that's fantastic. I never thought to add up the counts on my videos either. Maybe I got to start doing that. But we're getting there. We're getting there. I'm very pleased with the response to the videos there in general there. So we're doing good and kind of getting our foothold with everything else. Let's see. Anything else in the Xfinity Series lineup? Jordan Anderson was 20th there. Good to see Landon Castle getting the 19th spot there. He's had all kinds of mechanical issues, which is the reason he had to start 38th in this race. Was further back in the lineup. Good to see him get a decent finish out of this. Garrett Smithley, the last-minute ride in the number 17 there for Rick Ware Racing. Obviously, everybody is very aware of what happened last week in the news with Carson Ware. I'm gonna kind of just stay out of that one there because I don't have anything really to add to that. But obviously, to say the very least, difficult situation for Rick Ware Racing, SS Greenlight Racing, and what has stemmed from it since then. So hopefully something works out for all parties involved in that. That's about where I'm going to leave that there at the same time. Garrett's Jeremy Clements in the 17th spot there. Solid run there for him as well. So yeah, other teams kind of look at there at the same time. Let me bring out my notes here at the same time, making sure I got a lot of this too. We'll get into our trivia segment here in just a moment. Let's see. We talked about that. Okay, cool. So yeah, I think that's most of what I wanted to kind of cover on that section here. So we'll get into our trivia segment here now. In the meantime, do we have anything else new on, let's see. You don't have anything new on the issues. Let's see. Oh, cool. Starting Park Car just posted some pictures of the 66 and the 13. So let me retweet that there. Kudos to him on that. Got some great pictures on that. Oh, yeah. I was going to get Pockrus's page here and see if there's any other updates on this. Kind of keep this in the corner of my eye here at the same time. Jimmy Johnson offering his congratulations to Kyle Larson on the win. Okay. So no word yet on the technical inspection yet. So, okay. So we'll do our trivia section here at the same time. So, okay. We'll get into this. We'll go back to the 1990s throwback deal here for this, and we'll do our show and tell here in the meantime. So, again, the categories are the drivers and NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. So, go ahead and pick which category you'd like in the comment section there for sure, and we'll jump into that here. The categories, again, are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Yeah, WF Hornet. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Yeah, if it was different France, he would lock the RTA drivers out and filled the field with fillers. Yeah, Talladega 1969 should give you a pretty good indication about how that would have been handled. And I'm not, I'm not kind of a person that's against union activity, but I think that in this particular example, it's a lot of the decisions I think are just baffling. And if they were well-meaning or not, to try to exclude start and park teams that basically by 2015 were running full races and were attracting sponsors and had notebooks to develop their programs into something more. They could have just left well enough alone and let those guys be in there. And if they weren't meant to stay there, they would have cycled out just like anybody else. But nope, couldn't have that. But again, it's an unfortunate decision, but we'll see if things shake out on that end there too. Hope the sound is still good on this end here too. I haven't seen any complaints about it here, so that's good. We're still trying the new microphone here that we debuted during the October 16th show. So we got that there. Oh, congratulations, Blake. Congratulations on your sister's marriage. That's exciting. Very cool. Appreciate you stopping by here, but man, I figured you'd be really busy with all that going on there, but I do appreciate you jumping in. Currently tied at 5 with drivers in the wild card. Okay, we'll keep the polls open here. So we'll do a little bit of the show and tell here. So this was something I brought up on the show here a couple weeks ago, and I definitely wanted to follow up on this. I want to show you one of the first NASCAR hats that I picked up. And here we go. Talk about that 41 Kodiak paint job. Ricky Craven, 1995 hat right here. Absolutely one of my favorite paint jobs out there. Got this at Sears Point the year Dale Earnhardt. Actually, it just occurred to me. Yeah, the year Dale Earnhardt won his only road course race. I was probably wearing this in the stands. Love the way they did this, where they actually show a full side view of the car. It's very rare to even get like a front view of a car on these hats anymore. It's just the sponsor. And I get the sponsor is the key element there, or just the car number. But there's something different where you have it all the way down to even the contingencies, the Mannheim auctions and the Akuma and everything on there. I just thought that I wore this hat a fair amount. It's actually still in pretty good shape. Just regular, back when, well, actually, it's still got the old, I guess it wasn't even Chase Authentics back then. It was Chase Racewear on the tag there on the inside of it. But really neat, just regular snapback cap there. But yeah, bought that at I guess, I don't remember if Larry Hendrick Motorsports had their own hauler or if it was just like Chevrolets, but even out to the West Coast, they had a presence enough that they had these come out there. So in 95, I was 12. Oh no, hang on. 82. 12 or 13, probably thereabouts. So I had this. We'll see. That doesn't seem right. No, hang on. 95. Yeah, wow. Okay, yeah, maybe 13, 14, thereabouts. Yeah, so there you go. So yeah, pretty neat about that. So yeah, definitely want to show that. Love the stitch work they did on this here. Even got like the Goodyear logos on there. I mean, talk about contingency decals you just don't see anymore. Even kind of the space for them on the side of it. But the 95 Monte Carlo, there's even a version of this where they revealed this paint job. They put it on 94 Lumina, and even that looked pretty good. And I remember just drawing, I wanted to kind of figure out how to draw this number a lot. Like even like later on, like, if there was like a totaling something up with like 41 of something, I would always want to try to draw it in this exact style. I just love the way that looked. And it just had a really nice brand to it. Of course, Larry Hendrick's team, for a lot of its existence, unfortunately, Mr. Hendrick himself just passed away, I believe, just last year, had some just great paint jobs. Some of them were a bit simpler than others, but for the time that they were in the sport, they were good. And of course, Ricky Craven winning Rookie of the Year with this car in 95 definitely stands out in that regard too. So that was cool. I remember definitely pulling for this one here and wearing this quite a bit. 8-5 drivers over wild card. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the polls then, and we'll jump into drivers for the category here. So we'll do that. They both retracted their votes and resubmitted for drivers, thus breaking the tie. Okay, wow, okay. All right, well, we'll honor that, and we'll do drivers for this here. All righty. Okay, here we go. First question of the evening. Where did Rusty Wallace finish in his first NASCAR Winston Cup race? Where did Rusty Wallace finish in his first NASCAR Winston Cup race? Yeah, Andrew Hayes, exactly. Yeah, the 41, the LH forming a 41 on the logo. That was always really clever, too. Great branding for sure. I think there was a picture that Mike Demers took where it was like the first ever attempt by Larry Hendrick's team at Bristol, or the first time they qualified at least. I don't know if it was their first attempt, but I think it was the first time they qualified. And even back then, they had that same logo. So that was pretty hip. Hypocrisy. I like it, Death Killer. There you go. Just kind of checking some of the other comments here. Chris Boucher. Second best of the rest of me. Second best of the non-playoff drivers. Is he? I didn't even notice that. Good catch. I have to look at the standings some more here. I'm sure we'll get to, actually, we got the couple owner points right here. He's right up there. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, second best. There's Austin Dillon and the 3 team leading the group there, and then the 17 right behind him. So ahead of even the 21 with the Wood Brothers, ahead of Bubba Wallace with the win at Talladega, ahead of Ross Chastain. I mean, those are some teams that have really had flashes of brilliance this year. So kudos to the 17 for doing what needs to be done there. Alrighty, where did Rusty Wallace finish in his first Winston Cup race? The answer is indeed second. A lot of you got that. Second in Atlanta, if I remember correctly. Second is correct. Chastain was best of non-playoff. Oh, Chastain was best today in the race. Maybe I think we were looking at the points. Yeah, so that'd probably be the difference. Alrighty, what modern era driver was first to win more than one race in his rookie season? What modern era driver was first to win more than one race in his rookie season? All right, we guesses for Earnhardt and Davey Allison and Gordon and Senior. Daniel, thank you for stopping by. There you go. Best of luck with your college assignments there for sure. I know how challenging that is. Education comes first, and I appreciate you going for it. What modern era driver was first to win more than one race in his rookie season? Oh, yeah, let me read that again. Did you get that, Wyatt O'Quinn? I see you're asking for that. What modern era driver was first to win more than one race in his rookie season is the question. I should probably put it at the top of the chat because I can put chat messages there, but I'm sure I'll just forget to do that and then cycle that through. Alrighty. And the answer is Davey Allison. Davey Allison is indeed the answer. Late great Davey Allison. Alrighty. Took a few. You got that. I think Andrew Hayes. I think you were the first one on that one. Alrighty. Here we go. Next question. What track saw Ernie Irvan get emotional over his single sweet 1997 victory? What track saw Ernie Irvan get emotional over his single sweet 1997 victory? This is too easy for you guys. You guys are all getting it. What track saw Ernie Irvan get emotional over his single sweet 1997 victory? Of course, the answer is indeed Michigan. Michigan. He had his serious accident in 94 and then won there in 97. iRacer CB, you were the first on that one. Alrighty. Next question in the category of paint schemes under this driver's category here. Who drove a silver car and 4 early paint schemes to mark his 25th Winston Cup year? Who drove a silver car and 4 early paint schemes to mark his 25th Winston Cup year? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the 99 wreck at the 99 wreck at Michigan doesn't get talked about as much, but Irvin had a very hard hit there that year as well. Who drove a silver car and 4 early paint schemes to mark his 25th Winston Cup year? Just notice we got the Craven pattern on this too. Alrighty. Okay, who drove a silver car and 4 early paint schemes to mark his 25th Winston Cup year? A lot of you got it. The answer is indeed Darrell Waltrip, DW. But when I first read that, I was thinking Earnhardt because he did that silver car in the Winston, but not the other 4 early paint schemes. That would be DW. And RD Fox 76, it's like you were first one on that. All right, let's see if we can get a little harder ones here. Nah, not that one. Here we go. Next question. Who was seen in a 1998 commercial chasing a Pepsi can in his car during a race? Who was seen in a 1998 commercial chasing a Pepsi can in his car during a race? Who was seen in a 1998 commercial chasing a Pepsi can in his car during a race is the next question. All right, we got several guesses for Gordon, and it's just about a clean sweep. It's right there with the ooh, ooh, ooh. And the answer is indeed the Wonder Boy, Jeff Gordon. Jeff Gordon is indeed the correct answer. Oh, yeah, same car blew the tires, the hood and deck lid opened at the same time. Yep, I think you're right. This is the Generation Next era. Here you got all those old Pepsi commercials that way. Let's see. Alrighty. What legendary driver? Next question. What legendary driver opened driving schools in Atlanta and Rockingham? What legendary driver opened driving schools in Atlanta and Rockingham? What legendary driver opened driving schools in Atlanta and Rockingham is our question. All right, we got guesses for Buck Baker and Bobby Allison, Richard Petty, and Rusty Wallace and Hillenberg. There you go. Like you're thinking. Field filler's story indeed. What legendary driver opened driving schools in Atlanta and Rockingham? The answer is indeed Buck Baker, as mentioned also in the J.R. Charbonneau video. Buck Baker is the correct answer. Neon Bonnet, not quite. Buck Baker indeed. And where Jeff Gordon got his start, Racing World TV. Correct. There you go. Zachary Leffler. Looks like you were the first one on that. Jay Walker, Master of Lightning and Blabber. You got Buddy Baker. You're very close. Very close. You're in the right neighborhood. Alrighty. Do a couple more questions here and wrap up for the evening. What driver wears silver shoes when racing? This is the question. What driver wears silver shoes when racing? Silver shoes. That is our next question. What driver wears silver shoes when racing? Let me check this here at the same time. Do-do-do. Oh, we got inspection complete. I literally just cut away and I didn't see anything. You are fast. I'll tell you what. Better get your $1 hoodie. Refresh here again. Probably be up there. No, still not up on Pockrace's one yet. We'll be very close here. What driver wears silver shoes when racing? The answer is Darrell Waltrip. Darrell Waltrip. Almost thought it was going to be a trick question. Like maybe a lot of them did at the same time. Darrell Waltrip is the correct answer. Anybody get that? Got several from Marcus, because if you're thinking shoes, special shoes, I can definitely see. Definitely that one. Rusty Wallace. Jayski tweeted. Okay, that's good. That's good enough for me. So, okay, fantastic. Well, if that's cleared up, then great. So that'll be there. So it looks like we are going to have a Chad Fincham article tonight. And that could be the case. Pull this up here. This is 1 minute ago. Okay, yes, indeed. Okay. So, yes, as you quoted there, thank you for the heads up there. Jayski reporting post-race inspection is complete. No issues for Kyle Larson. He's the winner. Christopher Bell had 2 lug nuts, which is a $20,000 fine, crew chief suspension. Joey Logano and Chase Briscoe had 1 lug nut, which is a $10,000 fine. Larson, Hamlin, and Logano cars will return to NASCAR R&D Center for more inspection. This posted 2 minutes ago, about 5:09 Pacific time. So congratulations to Kyle Larson for locking up the victory. It is going to continue to be a challenge here for the remaining remaining 3 spots rather open in the championship for Phoenix. That'll be settled next week in Martinsville, as will perhaps the NASCAR championship, which remains a 3-way tie between Kurt Busch, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and Eric Almirola. We'll find out some more information on that there as well. I think Darrell Waltrip did ride a silver helmet. I saw a question about that. I think so. So definitely that aspect as well. I'm surprised Pockrace hasn't retweeted it yet. Maybe, again, we all have different time frames. I know I've had I'll tell you what, I'm glad this season's wrapping up because I've been having a harder and harder time making sure I'm ready to go and I'm firing all my computers up and stuff here before the start of these races. But we're getting there. All righty. Excellent. So, yes, Fincham finished last today. So, it'll be a Chad Fincham article, the second ever Cup Series last place finish for him, first of the season. Does not factor into the NASCAR Cup Series championship for this year, which remains a 3-way tie. And we'll have more information on that as the week progresses. I'll get some more information there, and I'll have clinch scenarios posted as part of the Thursday article, the entry list storylines for Martinsville coming up later this week. So, look forward to that. We'll do a couple more questions here to wrap up for today. This question here: what driver won the Winston West Series first street race in Tacoma in 1986? What driver won the Winston West Series first street race in Tacoma in 1986? We're digging deep on this one. You're going to skip? Okay, come on, then. We'll see. It could be anybody. You got it. Don't look it up. What driver won the Winston West Series first street race in Tacoma in 1986? What says the pit crew? Deep cut, absolutely. Very. I guess this is for Wally Dallenbach and Herschel McGriff and Buck Baker and Mike Bliss and Ron Hornaday and Dale Hawerchuk and so forth. What driver won the Winston West Series first street race in Tacoma in 1986 is our question. Alrighty, and the answer is indeed Herschel McGriff, Bridal Veil, Oregon zone. There you go. Herschel McGriff. A lot of you got that one, so good on you. Charles Peterson Jr., I think you were the first one on that one. Says Michael Waltrip. Not a bad guess. Not a bad guess. A lot of these Cup guys dabbled in these West races, not nearly to the extent that we used to see them do the Busch Series, but from time to time, for sure. All righty. Okay, so we'll do this one here. Last question for the evening, folks. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll wrap up with this one. Who proposed to his future wife in Victory Lane after a Busch win at Bristol? Now, keep in mind, this is the late 90s here, so it can't be anything within the last 20 years. Who proposed to his future wife in Victory Lane after a Busch win at Bristol? Four and 4 and 1 and 6. These are challenging questions. We've had some easier ones, but some pretty difficult ones. I would be perfectly honest on this. These are some challenging ones. Who proposed to his future wife in Victory Lane after a Busch win at Bristol? This is the question. I'll give everybody some extra time here to guess on that one. You got Davey Allison, Michael Waltrip, Randy LaJoy, Jeff Gordon. Several good guesses. Jeff Buekaboom. Buekaboom. R.D. Fox 76. You're starting to give me challenging names, much like Beast of Metal's been doing. Buckshot Jones, David Green, several other guesses. All right, I'll read it one more time here. Who proposed to his future wife in Victory Lane after a Busch win at Bristol? All righty, answer coming right up here. Yeah, I'm not good with matrimony questions. Actually, this kind of ties in with gosh, who was that was here with your sister's wedding here? I guess marriage is the common theme in this one here tonight. So we'll get this one here for you. Who proposed to his future wife in Victory Lane after a Busch win at Bristol? The answer is Michael Waltrip. Michael Waltrip. How about that? So Michael Waltrip shut out of Victory Lane for so long in the Cup Series, won a Busch Series race, and proposed to his wife there. So there you go. Oh, RD Fox 76 got the name pronounced. Well, there you go. We're right on. I'm glad I got that. It's hard to kind of break down, but that looks like that's a fun one to say there for sure. All righty. Well, that will about do it for our show tonight. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Congratulations again to Kyle Larson for winning what was a very emotional victory today and taking another step towards the championship round at Phoenix. Our next show is going to be during Martinsville weekend and on Halloween. And, that might be a little bit of a special show that evening. So stay tuned for that one there. The race should be done in the earlier part of the day there. So, if you are free during that little bit there after the race there, definitely make sure you tune in to the show that afternoon. In the meantime, have a very safe week, everyone. Check out more content at Last Car on Brock on Twitter. Lastcar.info is the website. And for more bonus content, check out patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock. Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you to the pit crew here. That's you guys out there. And we'll see you next Sunday.